Now you're.
Oh,
Well, here we are.
well, thank you, sir, for your patience.
It's all good, man. It's all good. You've done better than a lot of guys.
My my technology ignorance is showing, Robert.
You've done well. You're here.
Good. And nice to see you, sir.
It's a pleasure to see you as well, brother. So, how have you been? How's your day?
Everything is okay. We have been pretty well pushed around by this event, this series of events, and any scheduling got totally out of whack. Any attempts were based on so many different variables that it has been unusual for. And so what has actually happened, Robert, is we're finishing work orders that we received in February. We're finishing in September. And the ability for people to open places for us to work has been all over the place. Rules of how we open work out here have been well thought out, but they change every week. So you wake up in the morning, my day starts off with, good morning, what would you like me to do? And I'm happy to do that.
Right.
Because I am so not in charge of what's going on here. All right.
All right. Cool. So, okay, John, tell us your name, where you located, and the name of your company.
I have been out on Martha's Vineyard for 46 years. I came here as a 25-year-old, took a job in a boatyard as a joiner doing.
Okay, hold it. All right, hold it 1 second. We're going to get into that after we do the question.
Okay, got it.
All right, and your name.
I am John Thayer.
All right, let's do this. If you had the opportunity to go to the moon, would you?
If I had the opportunity to go to the moon,
Would you?
not at 71.
What word or phrase do you overuse?
I'm sorry?
What word or phrase do you overuse?
Do I overuse?
Okay, now let me just tell you, Violet Rose says she's near you in Pembroke.
I got you, Violet Rose. Yes, she is near me in Pembroke. Yes.
Right.
What word do I overuse?
Yes.
I'm happy to help out.
What is your least favorite thing to do?
Paint.
Now, these are life questions.
Okay.
What is your most favorite thing to do?
What is my what?
Most favorite thing to do.
In a current, I use a little bass boat to go out in the ocean as often as I can, Robert. That's my check on COVID.
Right. What is the one thing your wife or significant other, what is the one thing your partner or significant other would like to change about you?
That's a much longer list than a single. But I would say.
We don't have time for that whole list, right?
Hey, Robert, do you want to know what it is? I am married to a Korean woman, and she would love for me to get up on top of my inherent white racism and do something about it. How's that? Okay, and I've been married to her for 35 years, and there seems to be still too much room for improvement.
Right. So although this is happening in the world right now, you've been dealing with this for a while.
It has been in my day ever since we started working, because if you look at the trades, if you look at the trades in general, and the trades in this country, the trades in Canada, you see an immigrant population that populates the trades in a way that you don't see it in other industries. All right, and so the experience has been there, but my ability to overcome my upbringing continues to be elusive. How's that?
All right. What makes you tick?
I wake up running.
Okay. What irks you the most?
What hurts me the most?
Irks.
Hurts.
Irks.
Irks me the most.
Yes.
What irks me the most would be watching people perform poorly and being rewarded for it, where I can't seem to ever be allowed to ever perform thoroughly and be told thank you and paid well.
What sound makes you happiest?
What sound? I'm going with the local birds that I hear in the morning at 6 a.m. on my back porch.
Very nice. What sounds bother you?
High decibel machinery.
Okay. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
What
Profession?
Oh, what profession? I've been doing this since I was 19. If there was another chapter, Robert, it would be probably a teaching end to 50 years of doing this stuff.
Do you do any teaching?
No, we did some writing for Woodwork Magazine. We did some writing for the guys out of Minnesota. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, we wrote several articles, and I enjoyed it a lot. And then we just got busy again, and the writing went away. So,
What would you want on your tombstone?
what would I want on my tombstone?
Yep.
I'm having my ashes dumped in the ocean, and there won't be a tombstone.
Yeah.
So probably he's not here.
That is the most popular answer by far.
Is it really?
It is. I've done close to 100 of these, and I'm going to say 90% of them would say no tombstone.
Right. Nope.
What is it about your personality that drives your business?
I think it's a ability to. We have to communicate really well, because most of the people that we deal with aren't here when we're actually working for them. So there's communication skills to avoid misunderstandings.
What is it about your personality that hinders your business?
I lack training as a businessman, as an accountant, I turned out to be a really great craftsman and a fairly mediocre businessman.
Yeah, all of us.
Yeah.
If you want to travel cross country on a motorcycle, who would it be with?
If I want to travel cross country on a motorcycle,
Who would it be with?
my granddaughter.
Very nice. How old is she?
21.
That works. What was your most favorite concert?
My most favorite concert?
Yep.
Probably, I'm going to go with Emmylou Harris and Vassar Clemens.
Okay. When was the last time you cried?
About a week ago.
Why?
We lost a dear friend who I've known since the day I walked on this place. He just didn't wake up one morning, and we took him out on the middle ground and spread his ashes out around in the ocean outside the harbor. And it just was hard for me to realize that one day he just didn't wake up, and I was not going to see him. So, passing of a friend, Robert.
Correct. What impact do you want to leave on the industry?
I am self-taught, and the impact on the industry is that you can actually be a studio furniture maker without a educational aspect to it, if that makes sense to you. All right, without working in the academics.
Yeah, without being formally trained. With that.
Correct. There's no RIT. There's no North Bennett Street. We send people to the North Bennett Street School, but and we've sent guys from the shop, women from the shop, but I don't have any formal training, but I am perfectly capable of learning what I need to learn about anything.
When was your most difficult time for your business, and how did you overcome it?
There have been, all right, where we live, you think you're recession proof, but all that happens is the pipeline's full, but a hole has been created, and you don't know when that hole is coming up. Can be 3 years after everybody else has hit the bricks. So we've been through several really severe downturns. 1989, 1990, we watched 30% of our customers disappear, 30% of our resources disappear. That was that Bank of New England thing in when they Bank of New England went around and took on a whole bunch of new customers and then overextended themselves. And when they pulled back, they pulled all these businesses down and away. So that was an extremely difficult time because for 2 years in a row, we were doing 30% less work and we had 30% less opportunity. So it was pretty difficult.
Okay. Do you have any black friends?
Yes.
Do you often see people of color in your industry?
In my industry? Yes.
Who would you most like to have a conversation with?
This morning, I'm going to go with, I'd love 5 minutes with Barack and Michelle Obama.
5 minutes?
That's probably all I could get. I can't imagine getting more than that, right? And he's 11 miles away down the road, right?
That's true. You're right. You're right.
I saw him in a kayak the other day on Eggertown Great Pond, and I'm like, I just felt so happy that he was on the pond. You know, it was awesome. So that's where I'm going with this morning.
All right, I like that. Okay, so we're done with the conversation. So now we get on to your story, your journey, how you got into the business, how you started your business, and what it's like to keep your business thriving.
Yep.
All right, so it's on you. When you start?
Basically 19 and needing work. Found a cabinet maker in a hill town over on the backside of the Hudson River in upstate New York named Roland Wright, and went to work for a series of grumpy old men, and it was such a different time because you spent more time with them than you did with your girlfriend, your family, whatever. And sooner or later, these old grumpy men thought that they could treat you the same way that they treated their children or their whatever. And the way you learned was through a series of harsh lessons. And it's a lesson that I walked away with saying I would never, when I ran my own shop, I would never treat anybody like this. You know, we got to a point where fists would fly, and I would say no. I would say no. This is you and I are done because this is not happening. But that's the way they thought that they could impart information, and it was the time of life. It's not their, you know, they weren't wrong. You remembered what they said to you because there was this added reason to remember it, but it was inappropriate, and yet I took those early lessons, and then taught myself the rest that I needed to know. All right, but it was an interesting time, Robert. Interesting time.
Now, what part of the country was this in?
We were in the Hudson Valley of upstate New York.
Okay.
Not just on the Greene County side, up above the Catskills, southern Albany County. I had a child and a wife at that time who was attending school at the State University, so we were in that area for the first several years that I was training.
Okay. And then what?
In 1976, I moved down here. So I'm
Why?
20.
Why'd you? I mean, other than it being one of the most wonderful places in the world, why'd you move there?
I was actually I was getting done with a marriage, and my current wife was going to take a public health job down here, and we had a kid. So I literally came here to do a joint custody arrangement, not because it was vacation land. And little did I know what I was walking into, because the place is extremely insular. It feels like it takes forever before it's your turn out here, okay? And it is one of a difficult place to figure out how to make a living. All right, you know.
So you get to Martha's Vineyard and you start working.
I walked into a local boatyard. I walked into a local shipyard and said, "I need to go to work." And they put me to work the next day, because the skill level was there and ability was there. So they threw me right in the mix the next day. I worked for them for a couple of years, but basically at that time in my life, I was fairly unemployable. Okay, had nothing to do with it. Was more my issues than anything that they were necessarily doing, and I was regularly unemployable. So it became apparent that I was better off working for myself than I was pretending to work for others. All right, it's 45 years later. I still do a tremendous amount of work for the same people, but we do it on a different basis where than me as their employee. All right, so we probably built 20 new boats in the first couple of years that I was there, and then I had a shop at the house for a long time, and then in 1990 I took a shop on the waterfront down here in Vineyard Haven on the lagoon in another little boatyard where there's an old steel building, and we've been in that for 35 years.
Okay. Now, how long were you in the shop at the house?
Oh, the shop at the house. I had a 7-year-old when I moved here, and it always appeared to me that, like, I remember, I thought to myself, the one thing my mother always did for us was somebody was at home when you got out of school. Whether or not you came home was a different number, but somebody was always there. And I thought at the same time that it would be appropriate for me to work out of the house, because somebody would always be there for this guy to come home to, or his friends. So we weren't big on the turnkey kid routine. All right, and I thought if I gave them that basis, it was probably as important as any career that I thought I was having at that time. I have 3 kids. I have 2 50-year-olds and a 35-year-old.
Okay.
And so we're talking about the 50-year-olds.
Right.
All right. The 35-year-old currently works with us, and that is extraordinary. How lucky I am to have that.
So, is he working as a craftsman or as an administrator?
He has it's so great. It's so great, Robert. Do you have children? May I ask?
I have a 22-year-old.
So we spend all this time programming these guys, and then they become 22, 25, 30, and you're on the other end of the equation saying, who is this guy? Let me re-up here and find out who this guy actually is, because he is a lot smarter than I am. He sees things completely different than I do. And so we have this different approach, but his skill level is excellent at this point. His ability, we have this niche, Robert, where we still do a lot of things by hand. We still do. We don't have a CNC machine. We don't. What we do, it requires that you need somebody who can actually perform in a certain way, and so his skill level is extraordinary. His ability with SketchUp and those other modeling programs is so much different than mine, and it is so much fun finding out how he thinks or watching the way that he does stuff to see the difference in who he is and and actually find out who he is again.
It's very nice.
It's been a pleasure. Let's put it that way. All right.
All right.
Without a doubt.
Okay. So you go from the house shop to
Yep.
the shop you've been in for 30 plus years?
Yeah.
How the house shop, was it a garage shop or was it a shop that was actually in the
No,
backyard?
it's a boatyard shed built for boat storage in 1940 that probably was supposed to last 10 years, and it's 80 years later. It's covered in corrugated tin, so you look like you're in an earthquake zone somewhere in South America. It's in a little boatyard backwater over here. It's 3,000 square feet on 2 floors, and then we keep a series of containers at a local truck park so we can move finished product into a container, materials into a container, and pull them out, hardware into a container, and pull them out as we need to, because 3,000 square feet you could clog up in a couple hours, all right?
Yeah.
And keep it clogged. So it's that's the way it works out here, is a series of containers and a decent. It's actually been very difficult to find a place on Martha's Vineyard that's commercial.
Right. Okay.
It really is.
Now, John,
Yes, sir.
how possible, not at this minute, but before the hour, how possible would it be to get a tour?
I'm happy to.
All right, beautiful. Okay. So you're in your shop for 30 years. What do you find is your biggest challenge? Like being on the island, where do you buy wood, materials?
If you're from the Boston area, we have bought wood from everywhere from Newburyport, Boston, Cambridge. The names of the outfits that we use for most often were Anderson McQuaid in Cambridge. We use Gibson McIlvaine out of Baltimore. We use Downs and Reedy. We use Holton Bugby. We
So
use
everybody.
it. It is, over the years, people have come and gone, and their business models have come and gone. Are you selling decent hardwoods? And if you are, which ones? And how do I find them? And it's Earney Lumber in Bird Earney in central Pennsylvania. Him and Myron use those guys all the time. And here's a story. We were looking at standing in Cambridge in a yard, looking for 14-foot lengths of thick tiger maple, any kind of maple with a big wiggle in it. And we called Gibson. We called a couple of yards in Pennsylvania and said, "Hey, have you got any of this stuff?" They said no. And I said to them, I said, "Is there some?" At some point, I said to them, "Isn't there some guy who comes in and all he wants is the heavy-figured extra wide. And they said, oh, you're talking about Bert. Call up Bert. And I called up Bert in, I don't know, he's out below Alfred somewhere in Pennsylvania. I called up Bert Earney at that point, and I got his wife on the phone, and she was born here in Vineyard Haven. All right? So without even knowing anything, we got this great source out of central Pennsylvania, and Bert basically goes around and finds the extremely figured stock and hoards it and then ships it to us. So he's been extremely good.
So what is his name?
Earney Lumber, Irion Lumber, Irion Lumber, and he's remarkable. He's got. I watch his Instagram account. He's got a new sawmill that you would appreciate. All right, and it's so we've used everybody in this area. I find that for my whole business, there isn't anything that I need that I can buy local. So we're constantly buying things from away and putting them away until we want them. There was a time when pattern sawn mahogany was available, and we put away 40,000 feet of it because it was going to disappear.
So where do you put it?
Pardon?
Where do you put it?
Containers. In containers, in racks and containers.
How many containers do you have?
I think 5. Sometimes we have 3. Sometimes we have 6. It all depends on how much. Like right now, with everything so screwed up by scheduling, I am making things for houses as I can, and then putting them in containers and waiting for 3 or 5 months for the other end of the equation to say, okay, I'm done. You can bring it in, because it's just been such a difficult schedule. So,
Got it.
So I mean, you have availability to larger warehouses. I remember when we sent the truck to Yonkers to get the ash for the homelesses. I think the young guy went somewhere on the river in Yonkers, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's not available here. Okay, that kind of dead mill or whatever you're in, it's not here.
Yeah, that's my shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you consider to be the most obscure or interesting thing that you've done?
The most obscure
or interesting?
We never know what's going to come in the door here. That's part of the reason that it stays fresh, Robert, is we don't do a limited production of anything. We want you to have gone out in the marketplace and not found what you want before you even come here, and then we can figure things out. So the designers and the architects that come here have had some, let's call them unique ideas, and I'm going to say one of the most obscure things was we were working in an alcove, a curved alcove, and we made a curved glass display case for a cockle shell. What is it? Oh no! What are those little shells? There's a little shell, and it came out of Africa. It came out of South Africa, and there was this wonderful little small shell that was both money and fertility designations, and cowrie shells. So we had a leather base with cowrie shells sewed all over it that went in a curved display case, and if you go back far enough, cowrie was money. It was a commodity, and at the same time, because it was so prolific, it was also a blanket that they would possibly lay on a woman to make sure that she could bear a child. So I'll go with that one for this morning.
That's pretty cool.
There's a picture of it. There's definitely a picture of it on the website. We worked in Toronto for 2.5 years from Martha's Vineyard, and from 2009 to 2011. So while everybody else was in the middle of the financial recession, we were going full bore in Canada.
Okay, so what? So you're Martha's Vineyard, and you were working in Canada for 2 years.
Yeah. And then 2005 to 2007, we worked in Millerton, up the Hudson in Dutchess County, northern Dutchess County. And there are people here who value their relationship with us, and then they go and they have a project like they did up in the Hudson, and they meet the local people, and the local people look at them and say, "Oh, you stupid New Yorker, we hate you," and we're like, "We don't hate you," and so they say, "Okay, you do," and it was so we've done about 50% of our work goes away, and 50% of it stays here.
Wow. Okay. All right. So we have about 20 minutes. So
Okay.
let's do that too.
You want to take a walk now? You just have to tell me. One of these is going to flip a camera to a different mode, right?
Correct.
So let me find that one and see if I am. Oh, I got it.
John, you're natural.
Oh yeah. It is so unnatural, it's unreal. So this is I'm on the second deck.
Okay.
And in here you'll see that at some point they had a bunch of hulls in here that they were flipping over. But we go through. This is the wood storage that we want to have on hand. All right? And I'm going to go down this ladder. I'm going to take you out in front and show you where we are.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm in a little boatyard. Up the hill, if you look up the hill, there's the old Marine Museum that was a Marine hospital. And this is our Chilean earthquake zone building. All right?
Nice. Now, Violet wants to know if you got AC in there.
I'm sorry?
Violet wants to know if you got AC in there.
No. So then, this is your basic layout.
What kind of planing you got there?
A 1960 Powermatic. All right, and interestingly enough, if you look on the floor here, Robert, everything's up on cribbing because we get about 4, and this is new, we get between 4 and 6 tides a year that are now flooding the shop. This is new, and this is sea level rise is not a concept over here at all. It's a reality that occurred. I mean, 1991, Hurricane Bob put 6 inches of water in here. Now I get 12 inches of water 4 times a year because of the difference in sea level. So we have a spray room in the back here.
Okay, what's that?
Those are some artwork for a house down on the South Shore that we're just finishing up and sending out tomorrow.
Very nice.
All right. You never know, Robert. You just don't know what you're going to get. And there is bench work. Right now, we just finished emptying the place out of a ton right, loft up above, Omega radial arm saw, an old Walker Turner lathe. So we have basically we depend on being able to do handwork and not so much robotic or machine work like a CNC, right?
Now,
So, and I'm on the lagoon. I'm on
nice.
I'm on a little estuary.
Beautiful.
I'm on a little estuary on the right. Here we go.
Now, when's the last time you built a boat?
It's been a while. We maintain a lot of them, but actually from new, quite a while. A lot of that work has gone away from here. So here I'll show you something else. Here's our.
You froze. I can hear you.
This is our
Can you
family
hear
boat.
me?
And this boat was built at this boatyard in 1952, and 65 years later, we brought it back to within 100 feet of where it was built.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So
That's pretty cool.
when I say I get the boat and go out in the water to get away from everything, this is what we use. Right?
Okay. Very nice.
So, yeah. That's it. There's where we spend our days. I know where you spend your days.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Now, back in the shop, there seems to be some cabinets on the other side. Can we take a look at that?
What we have ongoing right now is there are this chunk of white oak is part of a dining room table that we started and then of course had to put off, and now due in October. There's going to be a 130-inch long, 48-inch wide. It's going to weigh a ton, and that's why we just haven't been pushing this one, because once we get it made, it's going to take 4 people to pick up and move. So,
Right, from consumer shop.
And,
over here.
Yep. Over here, this bench is just a little bit of a wreck from hauling back on some project that we're on. There's some drawers that we have going into the next project, which is coming out of the container at this point. And here's a good one. This is some curved. A tree fell on a curved section of fancy fence, and we turned and made the curved section again, and that's going in the paint room next. And that's just an old customer of mine who called me up and said, "I can't believe a tree fell on my fence," and I'm like, "Me either." All right. So, yeah.
What?
And there's our newest machine. These sliding panel. I am a table saw, radial arm saw trained guy. The young stuff is strictly sliding panel saw as a workstation, and it's pretty brilliant. All right, and Hammer was able to come up with one 10 years ago that is single phase, because the 3-phase is all gone from this part of town. Right?
Oh.
Unless you want to put in a 3-phase converter, and I'm not quite sure I do. You have 3-phase at the shop, Robert?
Yeah, all we have is 3-phase.
Yeah. They had it here, but then they took it off the transformer, and it's no longer available around. So, and we don't use a converter. We believe in we just use single phase at this point. Okay.
Very nice. What advice would you give to someone going into business?
I'm having this conversation all the time with my 35-year-old, 34-year-old about where does this go next, and we were pretty convinced a little while ago that we were basically dinosaurs because you can't franchise what we do. You can't, all right? We didn't invent the Big Pen. You're doing this labor-intensive work, and it doesn't replicate well. So how do we keep the demand up for niche work that is disappearing? How about that for a question? How do we do that? And all I'm thinking right now is maybe with COVID, maybe with supply chains getting all screwed up. What we've seen out here in the last 10 years, and it's been very disappointing, is years ago people came out here and said, what are the local resources that I could use to make a house, to make a project, to do a boat, to do any one of these things? Now, in the last 10 years, the architects have all turned this over to like, I can build you this huge house in this unreal amount of time because I'm going to have Robert in New York working on it, a guy in Toronto working on it, everything coming in, shipped in on exactly July 25th to install. And the only thing we really need on the island is some guys cut open some cardboard boxes and assemble some things. And so nobody looks here anymore for a resource. They just come from Washington or somewhere, and they bring their resources with them, and because they don't have any interest, they don't even have any interest in what's out here. So now, if the whole supply chain thing falls apart, and you're no longer able to be sure that you can get a container from Germany at a certain time, then maybe there's more opportunity for small shops to succeed. Maybe there's opportunity for small businesses, period, succeed, Robert. Maybe the big box stores are actually finding their limit, and people will say, I would rather support you and me than I would some corporate entity. And so to somebody who's young, you master your craft, you spend your 10,000 hours becoming a master, you try and teach yourself how to be a good small businessman, and then you realize, good Lord, that's like 50% of the time I'm either meeting with customers, chasing a customer for an answer, chasing a customer for a payment, or, all right, how much time are you actually in your craft, and how much time are you actually in your businessman mode? And it'll take a unique person to get it because it's not transferable, it's not franchisable, it's hard to replicate what we do.
Right. What would you do different if you had to do it all over again?
Well, personally, I think I've been energized throughout my career because there was something in me that just wanted to build things. So I don't know that would be any different. I think I probably would have spent a little more. Hard to say with the way, keep up with the technology, adapt a little bit easier, be a little less stubborn and a little more willing to learn from other people. Okay, I probably set some roadblocks up for myself from just being stubborn. All right, so maybe just be a little more willing. All right, a little bit better able to listen. I still would do the same thing I did.
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate your sharing. What do you see for you next?
What do I see for me next? Transfer to someone else, somebody else's turn. It's somebody else's turn, and completely out of the overalls at this point. I mean, if there is a overload of something coming in, I jump in. But for the most part, my eyes and elbows and everything that I've abused for 50 years are pretty well telling me it's somebody else's turn. All right. So
So, with that being said, how much longer do you want to work?
I bet you I'm in the last couple of years. I think there's another chapter, Robert. I think there is another chapter, and so I think a couple of years away, maybe, as we.
So what? So what do you do next besides
Actually,
get on that boat?
I'm sorry.
I said, what do you do next besides get on that boat?
We have a good customer base, whether they're actual end users or whether they're professionals like designers and architects, and we're looking at. They seem to be drawn like crazy because suddenly everybody thinks that they don't want to live in an urban setting, and they think they can come away and say, "Oh, I live here now, and I'll be all set because I have great internet access." And so we're seeing that the architects and the designers, people are using their house instead of just like visiting their house while they play. And the demand all of a sudden is like, my house doesn't work. This sucks. This doesn't work. I need an office. I need this. And the architects are drawn like crazy right now up here, busier than they've ever been. Interiors, same thing, busier than they've ever been. And so we're just going to see as we transition to somebody else's running this thing. We're going to see how to be helpful, how to stay relevant for a while backing off and letting other people make some decisions, and right or wrong, live with the results of their decisions. Okay, I'm not here to rescue anybody anymore. All right, it's going to be you're going to see it your own way, and you're going to do it your own way, and the proof will be whether there's any success in that. Right?
Right. I think we covered it all. Is there
I
anything
think
you
we're
want to
good.
add?
I think we're good. No, I thought it was great to see that you were. First of all, I thought it was great to see that you were doing this. I think this is absolutely wonderful thing that you're setting up, and I love to be among people who can share ideas and not believe that this is some adversarial secret that I have to keep from you. Our theory has always been that if you give somebody the knowledge of what it takes to do something, you didn't really give them anything because they still have to actually do it. And so there's
Yes.
nothing to be afraid of. There's no fear that, oh my God, now Robert is gonna, oh my God. And no, it's just like, but among the people that I know, I am most comfortable with people like you, and most uncomfortable with people who feel like what they do is special and that they are entitled to a seat at the table because they think so. Okay?
Right.
I don't do a lot of self-promoting at this point. I don't care. We have a body of work that we've done for 50 years that basically speaks for itself now. There is no more, hey, look at me over here in the corner. Okay?
Right.
It is what it is, and I'd be happy to see the young stuff, men and women, who are doing some really exciting new work. Okay.
Yeah.
Happy to say that it's somebody else's turn, and happy to have been part of that process. How's that?
Yeah. I think that's a beautiful thing. And as you talk about the sharing of information, 6 p.m. we talk to a chair maker, and what I've learned from the chair makers is that this particular guy and his friends, they all work together. From acquiring the lumber to milling the lumber,
Yep.
they all do it together. And I thought that was pretty intriguing, that these guys do the same thing and share their resources.
I think so. There's no fear there. There should be
Yeah.
no fear.
And everybody becomes better.
That's right. And if you have, if you have that attitude, you're so much better off. Okay,
Yeah.
it's so much better off.
Yeah.
So speaking to a man like you is a pleasure, and I appreciate it.
All right, my brother. We got 20 seconds. Thank you for your time, your inspiration, and thank you.
And the pleasure is mine, Robert. All right.
All right. And when I'm back on the vineyard, I'll stop in and say hello.
Yeah, that would be the best.
All
Okay.
right. Have a good one.
See you, sir. Bye.